Undercover boss orders. A bouquet at his flower shop stops when he hears a girl crying in the back. What happens when a CEO places a simple flower order at one of his own shops and uncovers the quiet rot behind the petals? Daniel Morgan, founder and CEO of Blossom and Root, a boutique florist chain with 11 locations, had spent the last 15 years growing his brand from a single roadside shop to a name people trusted for weddings, funerals, and everything in between. He built it on a promise that beauty shouldn't come at the cost of kindness. But lately, something felt off. Customer complaints about late deliveries, wilted arrangements, and cold service had been showing up more frequently. Morale was slipping. Staff turnover was rising, and yet, his regional managers insisted everything was running smoothly. The spreadsheets told one story, the whispers told another. So Daniel decided to stop looking at data and start looking for the truth, not as a CEO, but as a stranger. The bell above the glass door chimed, delicate and faint, like wind through a bell jar. Daniel stepped inside the Blossom and Root store at Little Oak, the 11th in his chain, but one he hadn't visited in nearly 2 years. He didn't come in as himself. Today, he was just a man in a dark utility jacket, jeans dusted with road salt, and a baseball cap pulled low enough to shadow his face. The kind of man no one looked at twice. That was the point. From the outside, the shop looked charming. Polished glass, a vintage bicycle with a basket of tulips out front, soft lettering on the window. It was everything the brand promised. But inside the air was thick with silence. It wasn't the good kind, the peaceful hush of a flower shop where time moved slower. It was the heavy kind, the kind that settles in after too much tension and not enough kindness. There were no greetings, no warmth, just 2 employees behind the counter. One older man with his back turned, hunched over an order sheet, and a younger woman arranging hydrangeas with careful, almost reverent hands. Daniel watched her first. She moved like someone who didn't want to take up space. Her fingers were steady but slow, each petal adjusted like it mattered. She wore her hair pulled back loosely, a few strands falling into her face. Her apron had a name tag pinned slightly crooked, Emma. She looked no older than 25. Her eyes flicked up when Daniel approached the counter. She forced a smile, quick, automatic, exhausted. "Hi there. Can I help you?" Her voice was gentle, but not soft. It held something under the surface. Weariness, maybe, or the effort of holding it together. Daniel nodded. "Just browsing." She gave a polite nod, then turned back to her bouquet. Behind her, the man at the workstation muttered something under his breath. Emma stiffened. She didn't respond. Daniel drifted toward a row of wrapped arrangements. Some of the roses were starting to brown around the edges. A few babies' breath stems had drooped. The shop was clean, but not cared for. Something wasn't right. A woman entered behind him, holding her phone, annoyed. "My delivery was supposed to be here by noon," she said, her tone sharp. "It's 1:15. My client's waiting at the venue." Emma looked up again, startled. "I'm so sorry. Do you know the order name?" The woman rattled it off. Emma tapped into the system behind the counter, her brows furrowing. Before she could finish checking, the older man turned. Bald, ruddy-faced, heavy build. His name tag read Blake. "We told you it'd be there by 1:30. He snapped at the customer. "You're early." The woman looked ready to argue, but Blake cut her off. "We're short today. Everyone thinks they can just clock in late or screw up orders." He didn't look at Emma, but Daniel did. Her cheeks flushed. She lowered her gaze and quietly handed the woman a complimentary card to go with the bouquet. "I'll call the driver to confirm drop-off," she said, her voice clipped with calmness that looked practiced. The woman huffed, muttered something, and left. The bell chimed again. Blake didn't say anything to Emma, didn't even thank her for handling it. just turned back to the workstation, grumbling under his breath. Daniel stepped closer to the counter. "Busy day?" he asked. Emma nodded. "Valentine's prep. We've been behind." She almost said more, but didn't. Daniel glanced at the wall clock. It was nearly 2 p.m. Her water bottle on the shelf was still sealed. She hadn't taken a break. A younger employee emerged from the back, skinny, tall, with earbuds around his neck. He couldn't have been more than 19. He carried a bucket of fresh stems, placed them gently beside Emma. Blake barked from across the shop. "Liam, those go in the fridge." Not there. Liam flinched. "Sorry," he said, reaching for them again. Emma touched his arm. "It's okay. I've got it." Daniel noticed something in the way Liam looked at her. Respect. Protection. Like he saw her holding everything together. And maybe she was. Daniel lingered for another 20 minutes. Watched Emma juggle 2 walk-ins, fix a mislabeled card, and quietly handle a broken vase behind the counter without complaint. Blake barely moved except to complain about scheduling. There was no music in the store, only the sound of stems being snipped, cardboard being folded, and tension winding tighter with every passing minute. Daniel left without buying anything. But before the door closed behind him, he turned back just once. Emma was adjusting a ribbon around a bouquet. Her hands trembled slightly. She blinked fast, like she was holding something in. She looked like someone who had learned to suffer beautifully. Daniel returned the next morning just after 10 a.m. Same jacket, same cap, same quiet step. It wasn't a surprise to see the same fatigue hanging in the air like dust that never quite settles. The store had just opened, but the signs of exhaustion were already blooming. Emma was there, alone at the front, lifting a stack of delivery boxes onto the counter. She winced slightly when she set the last one down. Daniel noticed. So did Blake, who walked in from the back room right at that moment. "You want to maybe pick up the pace?" Blake called out, not even bothering to lower his voice. "Valentine's is next week and we're already drowning." Emma didn't reply. She didn't nod. She just turned and started unpacking the boxes. Daniel stood by the window, pretending to browse greeting cards. His phone was off. His attention was laser sharp. A customer entered, middle-aged, polite, holding a slip of paper. "Hi," the woman said. "I'm here for a custom bouquet I ordered yesterday." Emma wiped her hands and smiled softly. "Do you have the order number?" The woman handed her the slip. Emma tapped into the system, blinked, then turned toward the workbench. "Blake," she called carefully. "Did the Ross bouquet get finished last night?" Blake groaned audibly. "That was supposed to be your job," he shot back, loud enough for the entire store to hear. "I left it at your station." Emma paused. Daniel saw her swallow something back. "I didn't see it." Blake threw his arms up. "Well, then maybe check your damn eyes before blaming someone else." The customer looked away, awkward. Emma, red in the face now, whispered an apology and turned to the back. Daniel saw her shoulders shake once, a subtle flinch, then reset. Liam emerged from the cooler with a box of carnations. His face dropped when he saw the tension. Daniel stepped closer. Emma returned with a rushed bouquet. It wasn't what the customer ordered, but it was as close as she could make it in time. She apologized again, genuinely. After the woman left, Blake stomped past Emma and muttered, not quietly, "You're lucky I'm even keeping you on this week." That was the moment Daniel moved. He approached the counter casually. "She handled that pretty well, don't you think?" he said, softly but clearly. Blake turned. "Excuse me?" Daniel nodded toward Emma. "She kept it together. Resolved the issue. I think that's worth acknowledging." Blake scoffed. "And who are you exactly?" "Just someone who notices things," Daniel replied. He didn't raise his voice, didn't flash a badge. He just looked. And Blake looked away first. Emma pretended not to hear. A few minutes passed. Liam offered to restock the tulips in the front display. Emma went to refill the ribbon drawers. The store calmed, just a little. Daniel watched Emma walk to the back cooler. She moved more slowly now, not lazy, just drained. A few minutes later, a loud crash echoed from the back. Everyone froze. Daniel moved instinctively. The door to the cooler swung back slowly, revealing Emma crouched on the floor, picking up shards of a broken vase with her bare hands. Water pooled around her shoes. She didn't cry out. She didn't ask for help. Daniel stepped forward. "You okay?" She looked up, forced a small laugh. Slippery fingers, I guess. Daniel crouched to help, careful to avoid the glass. Liam appeared a second later with paper towels and a bin. That's when Blake returned, voice already raised. "What now? You break something else?" Emma stood quickly. "It slipped." Blake waved a dismissive hand. "Maybe you're not cut out for this job if you can't handle basic—" "Enough." Daniel didn't shout it. He didn't need to. The room stilled. Emma's eyes widened. Liam stopped moving. Blake turned slowly. "Excuse me?" Daniel stood. "I said enough. She's been working non-stop. No lunch, no break, no thanks. And she still manages to treat people better than you have all morning." Blake scoffed. "What are you, her boyfriend?" Daniel smiled. "Number just someone who's seen how real teams are supposed to run." There was a pause. Blake glanced at the camera in the corner as if suddenly remembering he wasn't invisible. "I'll handle this in the back," he muttered, brushing past Emma. As soon as he was gone, Emma sank against the work table. Her hands trembled, wet with cooler water and nerves. Daniel reached for a towel. "You should take 10, he said quietly. "Get some air." She shook her head. "He'll get worse if I leave the floor." Daniel looked at her then, really looked. "I'll cover," he said. "Just for a few minutes." Her eyes flicked to his, unsure, then grateful. She nodded once. Daniel stood at the counter as Emma walked out the side door, pulling her apron loose and tucking her hair behind her ear like it was the first breath she'd taken all day. Liam leaned in and whispered, "Thank you." No one ever says anything. Daniel didn't respond right away. He just watched the door Emma had walked through, the sunlight hitting her like it hadn't in weeks. And he made a decision. This wasn't going to end with quiet notes and observations. The next time he stepped inside this shop, he wouldn't be undercover. He'd be Daniel Morgan, the man who built this place, and the man who was about to rebuild it properly. The following morning, the sky over Little Oak was the color of bruised lilacs. Daniel arrived before the shop opened, standing across the street with a paper coffee cup gone cold in his hand. He wasn't wearing the cap today, or the jacket, no disguise. He'd seen enough. Inside, the lights flickered on one by one. Through the glass, he watched Emma sweep the front mat, pausing every few strokes like the weight in her chest hadn't quite lifted since yesterday. At 8:59, he crossed the street and stepped through the door as the open sign flipped. Emma looked up. Her eyes flickered with recognition, then confusion. She almost smiled. "Back again?" she asked. He returned the smile, but didn't answer. "I was hoping we could talk," he said gently. She hesitated, glancing toward the back. "Blake isn't in yet." "I know," Daniel replied. He gestured toward a quiet corner by the mini fridge filled with eucalyptus bundles. She followed. They sat. He took out his wallet, slow and deliberate, pulled out a small company ID and set it face up on the table between them. The color drained from her face. Daniel Morgan, founder, CEO, Blossom and Root. She blinked once like she didn't trust what she was seeing. "I didn't come to catch you off guard," he said softly. "I came because this wasn't what I built. And yesterday, watching you, I knew I'd let it get away from me." Emma said nothing. So he kept going. I watched you hold that shop together with nothing but kindness and duct tape. And I watched a man I trusted turn it into a place where kindness looked like weakness. Still, she didn't speak, but her fingers tightened around the edge of her apron. You shouldn't have to apologize for someone else's mess, he said. Not to customers, not to managers, not anymore. Finally, she exhaled. It was a shaky, unfiltered breath, the kind people hold for too long until it breaks. I thought you were just a nice customer, she said quietly. Daniel offered a sad smile. Some days I wish I still were. The bell over the door rang. Blake. Late again. Cursing under his breath as he dumped a bag of pastries onto the back counter. Daniel stood up. Emma stayed seated. Blake, he called calmly. The manager turned, already mid-complaint. Then he saw Daniel, paused, stared. Do I know you? Daniel walked toward him. You should. I hired you. Blake laughed, like it was a bad joke. Daniel reached into his pocket again, showed the ID. The laughter died. The silence that followed was louder than any shout. I spent the last 2 days in this store, Daniel said. I watched how you spoke to your team, how you pushed responsibility, dismissed concerns, and barked orders instead of leading. I saw Emma break her back to cover shifts, stay late, take the blame for mistakes that weren't hers. Blake opened his mouth. Daniel raised a hand. I also watched her carry this shop on her shoulders while you stood in the back and complained about everything but yourself. There was no audience yet, no customers, no full staff. Just truth laid bare. You've been with this company for what? 18 months? Daniel asked. Blake nodded slowly. I've kept this location above water the whole time. Daniel stepped closer. At what cost? No answer. How many people have left this store in the last 6 months, Blake? Blake shrugged. A few. 8, Daniel said. 8 resignations. 5 exit emails cited hostility or burnout, and in every single one, your name came up. Blake's jaw clenched. This job's stressful. Not everyone can hack it. Daniel leaned in slightly. His voice dropped. Number, but everyone should be able to show up without fear. Blake looked away. You're done here, Daniel said, even and final. What? I'm letting you go, Daniel repeated. Effective immediately. You can't just... I can, Daniel said calmly. And I am. There was no fight, no drama, just the quiet shock of someone who thought they'd never be held accountable. Blake didn't protest again. He walked into the back room, grabbed his jacket in silence, and left. The bell over the door rang one last time as it closed behind him. Daniel turned back. Emma was still sitting in the corner. She looked stunned, but not scared. Daniel walked over and sat down again. I know that didn't fix everything, he said, but it's a start. She nodded, eyes misty but steady. You didn't have to come back, she said. I did, he said, because I built this place with the idea that no one should ever have to apologize for loving what they do. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Liam peeked in from the back hallway, wide-eyed, holding a clipboard. Was that really... Daniel gave a small nod. Yeah, it was. And then he stood, turned to both of them, and said something not from a script or a handbook, but from a place that mattered. Let's rebuild this. Together. And this time, he meant every word. The rest of the day passed in strange quiet, the kind that settles in after a storm clears but before anyone dares speak its name. Daniel didn't leave. He stayed. He didn't give orders, didn't pace the floor, just remained present, helping where needed, watching without judgment, letting the space breathe again. Emma kept working, slower now. Her movements weren't sluggish, just less tense, like she wasn't waiting for something sharp to land on her back. Liam moved around her like a little brother finally allowed to exhale. By 5, the final Valentine's pre-orders were boxed. The storefront emptied out. Daniel pulled 2 folding chairs to the back workbench, beside the hydrangea fridge that still rattled when it kicked on. He brought water. Real water. Cold. Bottled. With the caps twisted open like an unspoken truce. "Sit," he said gently. Emma and Liam sat. No aprons, no clipboards. Just people. Daniel leaned forward, forearms resting on his knees, the way people do when they're not just there to talk, but to listen. "I owe you both a conversation," he said. Emma shook her head, instinctively and automatically. "You don't owe me anything." "I do," Daniel said, still calm. "I owe you the truth." Liam watched him like someone watching a man drop a stone into a pond, waiting to see if it sinks or skips. Daniel took a breath. "I started Blossom and Root because I believed beauty could be built with kindness. I wanted to make places that were peaceful to walk into. Not just for customers, but for the people who worked there. Places where people would feel seen." He paused. "And somewhere along the way, I got further from that than I thought." Emma didn't interrupt, but she was listening with everything in her. "I looked at spreadsheets, not shifts. I looked at the sales, not strain. And when complaints came in, I let my team polish the surface instead of checking the roots." Liam leaned in a little, his voice barely above a whisper. "That's what happened here. The roots went bad." Daniel nodded slowly. "Yeah, they did." For a few seconds, the only sound was the cooler motor, humming like a heartbeat. Then Emma spoke. Her voice was quiet, controlled, but raw. "I used to come in early just to smell the store before it opened, when the flowers were fresh and everything felt clean, like I was stepping into something soft." Daniel looked at her. She wasn't reminiscing. She was grieving. "I stopped doing that a while ago," she added. Liam rubbed his thumb across the edge of the plastic bottle. "When I started, I thought this job would be calm. I didn't expect yelling." Emma half smiled at him. "You got yelled at once." "I mean, it was a very intense yelling," he said, and for the first time in days, she laughed, just a little. The kind of laugh that escapes before you can stop it. Daniel waited until the moment softened again. "You both stayed," he said, "when others didn't. Why?" Emma answered first. "Because I didn't want to give up the part of it I loved. I still love it. The way people light up when they see a bouquet you made for them. The way you can say sorry with peonies or goodbye with lilies. I didn't want Blake to take that from me." Daniel looked at her like someone seeing a page he forgot he'd written. Liam spoke next, more slowly. "I stayed because Emma stayed." That silenced the room in a different way. Emma blinked. He shrugged. "You don't see it, but you hold this place together." She looked down, but her smile said she heard it. Daniel sat up straight, hands clasped. "Here's what's going to happen. I'm not just going to fix things on paper. I'm going to fix them here, with you." He looked between them. "First, I'm hiring a new store manager, someone who actually leads, who mentors, who listens." Emma tensed. "You'll have a say in who that is," Daniel added. "I want you to feel safe showing up." She nodded slowly. "Second, no more skipped breaks, no more unpaid overtime, no more covering 2 roles with one body." Liam tilted his head. "Like, we can say no?" "You can say human," Daniel said, "and be heard." Emma's eyes glistened. Daniel reached into his coat and pulled out a small spiral notebook, the kind you find in the back pocket of someone who still believes in writing things down. He flipped it open. "These are the changes I want to make here, but I need to know what you need. What would make you stay? What would make this place worth it again?" Emma hesitated, then said the one thing that mattered most. "Trust." Daniel nodded, closing the notebook. "Then that's where we start." Outside, the sun had dropped behind the rooftops. The florals in the window caught the last of the amber light, glowing like stained glass. Inside, something else had started to bloom again. Not a bouquet, but a belief that this wasn't just a job. It was a place that could matter again. It happened 3 days later. The email came from legal. Subject line, immediate attention required, employment grievance filed. Inside, a formal notice. Blake had filed a wrongful termination claim. The words felt clinical, sterile. But Daniel knew what they meant. It was the same tactic used by men like Blake in a dozen industries. Flip the script, play the victim, hope that the noise alone would be enough to make people look away. Attached were screenshots Blake had compiled, internal policies, inconsistencies in his onboarding records, and a few selectively worded Slack messages from his previous supervisor. Daniel read them all. Cold, calculated, spun just right to sound plausible. But then he got to the last page. Emma's name. Blake had listed her as a primary witness, not because she'd spoken out, she hadn't said a word publicly, but because she was there, in the room, when it happened. When Daniel fired him. And that made her a liability. That evening, the little oak shop was quiet again. Valentine's week had passed, and the floral rush had slowed. Daniel walked in through the back, not as a CEO this time, not even as an observer. He walked in as someone bringing heavy news. Emma was finishing up a custom bouquet, ivory garden roses, peach ranunculus, dusty miller. Her hands, always steady, but her shoulders, slightly hunched, tired in a different way now. She looked up when she saw him. She smiled, small, cautious. He didn't return it. "Can we talk?" he asked. She nodded, wiped her hands, and followed him to the back. They stood by the shipping table, away from Liam, away from the front windows. "It's about Blake," Daniel began. Emma didn't flinch. Not yet. "He's filed a grievance against the company," he said. "He's claiming wrongful termination, hostile work environment, defamation, still no reaction. And he's listed you as a key witness." There it was, a flicker. Her breath caught. Her hand went to the edge of the table, gripping it lightly. Daniel waited. Emma didn't ask what it meant. She already knew. Instead, she said something else. Quiet, flat, heavy. "This happened to me before." Daniel's heart stilled. "At my last job, a wedding florist in Springbrook. I called out the owner for lying to clients about where we sourced our flowers. He flipped it on me, said I was unstable, that I made the staff uncomfortable." Her voice didn't shake, but her eyes went distant. "He threatened to sue unless I signed a letter saying I'd acted erratically. I didn't have a lawyer. I just wanted to leave." She paused. Then, "So I signed it." Daniel stood still, but inside, something snapped. The quiet kind of snap, the one that doesn't scream. It tightens. "Emma," she looked down. "I'm not going through that again," she said. "Not even if this time I'm right." He took a step forward. "You shouldn't have to." She laughed, bitter, brittle. "But I do, because if this goes public, if my name shows up on some legal brief or blog or HR memo, I lose everything all over again. References, security, even here. I became the girl from the Blake case. Not the florist, not the quiet one, just the risk." Daniel's fists clenched at his sides. "I'll make sure that doesn't happen," he said. "You can't promise that," she whispered. "I can promise you this," he said, and this time, he didn't blink. "You won't face it alone." She didn't respond right away, just kept her gaze on the flowers like they could shield her. "I don't want to be a headline," she said softly. Daniel nodded. "I don't want you to be a headline either," he said. "I want you to be protected." A beat passed, then two. Then he added carefully, "I've already called in counsel. Not just company lawyers. I'm hiring private representation for you, not for me. Not for the brand. For you. She looked up. Fast. I'm covering everything. You'll have full legal support, separate from ours. Full anonymity, where we can guarantee it. No pressure to testify unless you feel safe. Her lips parted slightly, like she wasn't used to being offered protection without conditions. Why would you do that? She asked. Because people like Blake win, Daniel said, when people like you are left to stand alone. And I won't let that happen again. Not on my watch. Not in my house. For the first time that evening, she looked him in the eye. Really looked. And something cracked, not broken. Opened. I'll think about it, she whispered. That's all I ask. Daniel left the shop in silence. Outside, the streetlights flickered on one by one, casting long shadows across the sidewalk. Somewhere in the distance, a train horn sounded, low and tired. Daniel reached for his phone. He didn't call PR. He didn't call finance. He called the lawyer he trusted most, and he gave her one simple instruction. Do whatever it takes to keep her safe. This fight's not hers to carry, it's ours. 3 weeks later, the ruling came down. The claim was dismissed. Blake's accusations unraveled in front of a mediator faster than his temper ever had. He hadn't expected the company to respond so thoroughly, to dig up exit interviews, recorded performance complaints, even time logs showing missed breaks and forced overtime. What he least expected, though, was that Emma never took the stand. She didn't have to. The facts were loud enough. When the email came through confirming the dismissal, Daniel was sitting in the corner of the little oak shop with a cappuccino gone cold in his hand. The entire store was quiet except for the hum of the cooler and the soft shuffle of petals being sorted. Emma was at the front counter tying a silver ribbon around a bouquet of irises and lisianthus. Liam was in the back room reworking the shelf displays. It all looked normal. And in a way, it was. But what happened next wasn't. Daniel waited until close, then called Emma and Liam to the back. They stood in the packing room where 3 weeks earlier a different storm had broken loose. The air was lighter now, but not aimless, just waiting. Daniel didn't waste time. The company won, he said. The grievance has been officially closed. Blake's claim was rejected. Emma nodded once, no smile, just quiet relief. I also wanted to tell you both something else, he added. He turned to Emma. We have an opening, he said. Regional supervisor. 5 locations under your wing. Flexible hours, double pay, training team under you. Emma blinked, like her brain had heard the words, but her body hadn't caught up yet. You're offering it to me? She asked. Daniel smiled gently. I am. There was a long pause. Liam looked at her like he was already planning the celebration. But Emma didn't smile. She looked down, at her shoes, at the smudge on the tile floor, anywhere but at him. And then she said it. Software, honest. Final. I can't take it. Daniel's smile faded. Why not? She looked up at last, and her voice, steady now, cracked something deeper open than any breakdown ever could. Because when I started here, I was afraid of touching the wrong petal. I was scared to speak. I thought my job was to shrink. She took a breath. I stayed because Liam reminded me what it felt like to be seen. Because this place, even broken, gave me something I hadn't had in a long time. A reason to wake up and show up. Her hands curled slightly at her sides. Not tense, just grounded. If I take that promotion, she continued, I leave this shop. I leave the people who are just now starting to feel safe. Daniel was quiet. Emma added, There's always going to be someone like me walking in for the first time, scared, quiet, unsure. I want to be here when they do. Liam's voice broke the silence. You mean, like what you did for me? Emma didn't answer him. She didn't need to. Daniel leaned back slightly, hands in his pockets. He looked at her like someone seeing the real shape of leadership, not in suits or strategy decks, but in the fierce gentleness of a person who chooses to stay where they're needed most. He reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a small velvet box, opened it. Inside was a pin, a silver flower, subtle, elegant, not for show, for meaning. "We give this to one person a year," Daniel said. "Someone who holds the standard when everything else bends." He handed it to her. She took it with trembling hands. The moment hung in the room like light catching on glass. Daniel spoke, quiet but certain. "You don't need a title to lead. You already do." Emma didn't cry, but her throat tightened. You could see it in the way she looked at the pin, then at Liam, then at the cooler that still rattled every hour. "I'll keep the shop," she said softly. "And we'll keep you," Daniel replied. He turned to Liam. "I want you trained in post-event florals. Give you full control of seasonal displays. Let's build your hours up." Liam's face lit up like someone just gave him the keys to his future. Daniel took one last look around. The scars hadn't vanished, the past hadn't rewritten itself, but something had shifted, permanently, in the way Emma stood taller without raising her voice, in the way Liam followed her example without being told, in the way leadership didn't have to be loud to be unshakable. And for the first time since the day he opened his very first store, Daniel didn't feel like the heart of Blossom and Root was beating in a corner office. It was here, at a scuffed table, beside a hydrangea cooler, in the hands of people who refused to leave others behind. It began the following Monday. Daniel didn't announce his return. No press release, no email blast, no grand corporate rollout. He simply showed up. Every morning at 8 a.m. sharp, wearing the same navy apron as everyone else. No title, just a name tag. Daniel. He clocked in, swept the floor, carried buckets from the cooler, refilled the sugar jar by the coffee machine in the break room that never quite brewed right. For 4 weeks he made himself small, not to hide, but to see clearly. And what he saw was this. Change doesn't come from commands. It comes from consistency. Emma began training the new hires herself. 2 girls fresh out of floral school. 1 boy who'd never held pruning shears but cried the first time a customer said thank you. She taught them how to speak softly to people going through grief, how to spot bruised petals before customers do, how to wrap stems tightly so they didn't sag in the car ride home. Not once did she raise her voice. Not once did she stop caring. Daniel noticed that Liam had stopped asking for permission. Now he offered suggestions, quietly but firmly. Color palette changes for spring displays, scent combinations for the new shop windows. He had the eye of someone who no longer needed approval, just space. The air in the shop changed too. Music played low during prep hours. Soft jazz, a rotating playlist Emma made that included 3 surprise tracks from old musicals. People hummed while they trimmed. The staff room that used to be empty during breaks now had laughter in it. People sat, ate, rested. Daniel upgraded the fridge. No one asked him to. He just noticed how everyone avoided it. He also upgraded the scheduling system, with buffer zones built in. No one was left working double shifts without a breather. Emma helped him build the new shift templates from scratch. She didn't call it leadership, but it was. One afternoon, a woman walked in carrying a bouquet that had wilted in the heat. Daniel watched from the counter. The woman was flustered, clearly upset. Emma listened, didn't argue. She apologized gently, offered to remake it, offered water while she waited. The woman declined, but softened. Said she was just stressed. Her mother's memorial was tomorrow. Emma said only 3 words in response. "We'll make it right." The woman left with a fresh bouquet, eyes red, shoulders lighter. No policy made that happen. People did. Emma did. Later that week, Daniel called his leadership team together on Zoom. The suits. the ones who still saw numbers first. He gave them a presentation titled Root Systems. It had no pie charts, just photos. Emma is helping a new hire balance colors. Liam is leading a mini workshop on bouquet wrapping. A thank you card left on the counter that simply read, "You reminded me what kindness smells like." And then Daniel said this: "If we want customers to feel something when they walk into our stores, the people who work there have to feel it first." Silence. Then someone said, "Which store is that?" Daniel smiled. "Little Oak." On the final Friday of the month, Daniel prepared to step away again, not to leave for good, but to return to his role as founder, this time with open eyes. He called Emma and Liam into the back, laid out final updates. 3 new hires are starting next week, a budget increase for design training, a request to let Liam assist the merch team at a regional level, and a note to Emma, handwritten. "You didn't need to climb to lead. You stayed, and the roots grew stronger around you." She tucked it into her apron pocket. Didn't speak, but when she turned to leave, her voice followed her, soft and certain. "Next week's forecast says it'll frost. Tell the other stores to pull their daffodils early." Daniel chuckled. Already on it. As he locked up the shop that night, Daniel paused by the counter one last time. The scent of peonies and lemon leaf filled the room. The air was warm, no tension, no weight, just life, growing again, in the cooler's soft hum, in the clipped stems. In a way, no one had to explain themselves anymore. The rebuild wasn't perfect, nothing lasting ever is, but it was real, and for Daniel Morgan, that was enough. The next morning, the air felt different. There wasn't anything special on the calendar. No holiday, no launch, no event. Just a quiet Saturday at Blossom and Root, Little Oak, where spring had begun to softly press its palms against the window panes. Daniel arrived just after sunrise, not to work, but to say goodbye. At least, for now. He stood outside the shop for a moment longer than usual, watching. Inside, Liam was already adjusting the storefront display. Baby's breath framing clusters of fresh tulips, arranged just slightly off-center, the way Emma liked it. The glass hadn't even been wiped clear of dew, but the warmth was already blooming through. Daniel pushed the door open. The bell chimed. Emma was at the back station, hunched slightly over a tray of wax flowers and freesias, coaxing them into place like a whispered prayer. She looked up, smiled, but didn't rush over. That was new. She moved with confidence now, not arrogance, just presence. He walked to the counter, slipping off his jacket, setting down a canvas bag with 2 coffees inside, hers labeled with a Sharpie heart on the lid. She took it with a soft thank you, already unwrapping the stir stick. They stood there in the familiar stillness, like people who didn't need to fill the air to understand each other. "I'm heading out," Daniel finally said. Emma nodded. "To corporate?" "To the other stores. Time to check in, really check in." She smiled. "They won't know what hit them." He laughed quietly, a little proud. Then he pulled something from his pocket. It wasn't a pin, not this time. It was a simple wooden tag, carved with the shop's founding year and a short inscription beneath it. "The second bloom is always stronger." He handed it to her. "I had it made," he said, "for this shop, for you, for what it became." Emma turned it over gently in her palm. "It's funny," she said. "I used to think surviving here meant making yourself smaller. And now? Now I think surviving means staying rooted, even when someone tries to dig you out." Daniel looked around the shop. The stocked shelves, the fresh-cut stems, the faces of the new hires laughing in the back as they carried a crate too big for either of them. He nodded. "You kept it alive." Emma shrugged. "I didn't keep it alive," she said. "I just made sure no one forgot why it mattered." A pause. Then, without looking up, she whispered, almost to the flowers, not him. "There's a little dogwood tree outside the shop. Been there since before I started. One branch got frostbitten this winter. I thought it was done. But yesterday I saw the tiniest bud near the tip." She looked up. "It's still trying." Daniel's voice softened. "Then we owe it the same." He turned to go, reaching for the door. The same door he'd once entered as a stranger, uncertain and undercover. Now he left as someone who had seen not just the cracks in the system, but the strength of the people holding it together. Just before he stepped out, he heard Emma behind him. Her voice was low but steady. There was a dogwood bloom in her hand. She pressed it gently into a bouquet resting on the counter. Leaning closer to it, she whispered something under her breath. Daniel didn't catch the words exactly, but he understood the feeling. It was peace. It was protection. It was a legacy. You know, sometimes the strongest people in the room aren't the loudest. They're the ones who show up early, stay late, and keep going, even when no one's watching. People like Emma don't ask for recognition, but they change everything just by refusing to quit on what they believe in. This wasn't just a story about a flower shop. It was a story about how leadership is earned in silence, how kindness can be an act of defiance, and how the quietest voices often carry the most weight. If this story moved you, even just a little, take that feeling with you. Notice the Emmas in your life. Protect them, appreciate them, or better yet, be someone they don't have to survive around. And if you want more stories like this, stories that peel back the surface and show you the truth behind the smiles, subscribe to this channel. We're just getting started. Hit the bell, not for notifications, but because the next story might be the one that changes how you see everything. Thanks for being here. See you in the next one.